You know what we haven't done lately? Sit down at the vise and tie a jig. Not just a jig, but a hair jig. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm feeling Fire Craw. Yep, you heard it. We are back at the vise today, going to tie up a jig today, hair jig. I've already got the head poured and painted. This is a 1/2 ounce football head painted with, naturally, Lurecraft. Beautiful color and is going to work quite well. Of course, Fire Craw is normally layered vertically, red on top, orange on the bottom. We're going to layer it still, but we're going to layer it horizontally. So a mixture of red and orange, maybe a little back and forth. We need to get our materials, so let's do that. First thing we're gonna need is some rabbit zonkers. I'm feeling red claws. Next up, I'm gonna have 2 different layers of UV polar chenille, which is this good stuff right here. Drape it down. Of course, we're gonna need orange for that. And I think I have a red. No, I do not have red, but that's okay. We can use orange for both layers. I'm thinking bucktail for this. We're gonna do a hybrid. So it's gonna have silicone in it. It's gonna have some rabbit fur in it. I'm thinking some bucktail as well. And since we only have the orange, this is gonna be a body wrap. We only have the orange polar chenille. Let's do red bucktail. Let's grab a bright orange one just in case as well. Let's see. Last thing, we need some silicone, and I've got some sweet orange bright silicone that we're going to finish it off with. And it is right here. See that? So I think with the hair and the body wrap, all we're going to need is 1 tab of this to finish it off. We'll be using red 210 denier flat wax nylon for our thread today. I've got just a little tiny bit of orange chenille. We're going to use that almost right off the bat. And then we're going to finish this guy with a black FG30 weed guard. Let me go grab all of that, get the jig hook in the vise, and let's get started. So here's that 1/2 ounce head that I was referring to. Look at the color. Oh man, you can tell it changes color as the light hits it in different places. Man, oh man. I'm missing the bottom of this collar. Maybe you didn't realize that, but this usually has a little bait keeper at the bottom. It didn't fill out. Wasn't actually a big deal because I was gonna cut it off anyways. So this is a 4/0 Mustad 32-786 hook, paired up with this 1/2 ounce head, and that means it's a little shorter. So normally on a 1/2 ounce pitching jig using a 5/0 hook, same Mustad 32-786, there's 2 collars. That lower one near the hook point is for the bait keeper, right? Slides up on and holds your trailer. Then the top one's where you would tie onto for the skirt. Normally, when I'm putting rabbit claws or rabbit zonkers on a hook that size, I use 3 inches. And I tie it right on to that lower collar. Since we had a 4/0 and we don't have as much room, and I want to make sure that we leave room for both the bucktail and finally the silicone at the end, we're gonna go with 2 inches. So I've pre-cut these in 2-inch strips. Always a good idea to pull off just a little bit of that hair at the end where you tie it in. And actually, I am ahead of myself. First thing we need to do is tie in our little chenille ball. So that is going to be right at the very base here, and it's just going to help flare the hair out just a little bit. So we're going to tie on to just that core. There we go. And nothing too fancy here, just a couple of wraps. Just to kind of thicken it up a little bit there at the end. And that'll be good. Bring that around, 2 behind, couple in front. and pop it off. And lock that down. Now we're ready for the rabbit. First one in right behind that claw. This is on the hook shank, as you can see. Don't have to go crazy on it, just enough to keep it there. We'll wrench on it here in a second. There we go. Push that up just a little bit. Beautiful. So that looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and lock this down. I'm pushing it right up against that chenille ball to get maximum flare out of that, out of those zonkers. And 2, 3, 4. I always like to whip finish after I put those in. So from there, first thing is a little bit of body wrap. So I've got that orange UV polar chenille. Take it back the core and tie that in right there. And then we're going to bring this up. This second lower collar here is where we're going to put our bucktail on, but not all the way up. So we don't need much here. We're going to do probably 2 layers of this body wrap. So we don't need much. I think I've locked it down. I'm going to do a half hitch right here just to keep it in place. And then hang it up so that I can use the rotary to spin it. So face that material backwards if you can, so it doesn't get matted down on itself. There. I think we'll go one more, and then we're going to we'll tie it off, and then we'll backtrack so that we really secure that in place. So that looks good. Again, 1, 2 behind, and then at least 2 in front. That just kind of locks it down. So now we can kind of pull that back and give ourselves a nice plateau or platform here for some bucktail to sit on. Bucktail. It's decision time, folks. Do we go just red? Do we go orange? I don't think we want to go just orange, because the last thing we're going to put on is that orange pepper silicone. And I feel like if we put on the orange now, we're just going to have an orange jig with red tails, or red claws. Let's go with the red. Let's go a thin layer. No. See, we're making this up as we go. Let's do the orange, but we're going to do 2 very thin layers of each color. So we're going to have a red-orange bucktail layer. Because we're tying on a thicker piece of this, right? We're not tying directly on the hook. We're tying on to a part of the lead, part of the collar. You're not going to be able to move that bucktail around as easily. Let's take a look. In relation to our claws, we don't want it to be super long, so I'm actually going to bring that back. Yeah, something like that. We've got a couple of long wispy ones out here. We can actually get rid of those super long ones. That looks pretty good. All right, you can get a flavor for what we're going after there. Light wrap just to hold it in place. I always hold down a little pressure on the thread when I'm dealing with bucktail or anything slippery to make sure that I don't lose any. If you don't do that, the bucktail will go all over the place. You just have to start over. So that's the bottom. Oof, almost, but as expected. I like that thickness, so we're going to actually go with that. Let me lock that down and then trim it. All right, before we flip it over and do the other side, let's go ahead and do red. All right, let's match it up. Make sure that it's the same approximate length. Get that on top. A couple light wraps. And spread it around. Yeah, I like that. So you got the sparkle down underneath, Then you got just little hints of orange, but red is the predominant color here, which is going to be preferred, as that orange silicone is going to go right there. Beautiful. Now flip it over, same thing, orange and then red. You can see we've got red predominantly, but you've got flashes of that orange in through it. I think it looks good all the way around, and you can still see some of that sparkle down in there. I'm not sweating this stuff at all, and here's why. Because we're going to go to this UV chenille once again. I'll pull that back and lock that in place just like before. Even going beyond that collar. There we go. We are to the last step really at the vise. There's obviously other things to do once we finish it up, but we're now to the silicone. Let's put that guy on there. The right side of any silicone jig, right side for me, left side for you, but off the head is always a little bit longer because you got to leave room for it to drape over, and it's going to curve, which means you need a little extra length. So drape that guy over, let the natural curve happen. Make sure they're roughly the same. I'm going to push this guy around. Beautiful. Looks like he's very well distributed. And let's just lock it in. Make sure we don't trap any silicone while we do that. Yep, that looks good. Let's whip finish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whip finish. Only thing left to do now is cut free the silicone. Only one tab to worry about. And, oh, you know what? Before I did that, I should have sealed it. So we've got our Loon water-based head cement. It's not too late. It's bad when you do that and you got a fuller skirt jig or a fuller skirted jig, and it's harder to get in there. You have to kind of pull the strands back and secure them back in place again. But with only one, I can kind of weasel my way in there. I'm going to take my dog comb. It's a metal dog comb I got from Walmart on the recommendation of Small Jaw. This has been probably a year ago or so, but these big teeth part, perfect for separating silicone skirts. They're not too thin, these are too thin, but these nice thick ones here, it's like $5. So if you find that your skirts the strands tend to stick together and you're peeling them apart by hand all the time, go to Walmart, find you a metal dog comb just like this, and make your life a little bit easier. Let's see how she looks. Oh yeah. Bring that down. Of course, we need the weed guard. We haven't put our black FG30 weed guard in it yet. So there it is. That's not bad. I'm looking at the length of the claws in relation to the length of the skirt. This top skirt is coming down just a hair, no pun intended, but just a hair beyond the bucktail in spaces, but then the bucktail kind of is longer in parts too, which I dig that. I think that's a winner. Let me get a weed guard into this guy, and then we're going to go over to the test tank, see what it looks like in the water. Well, there's the final product. Black weed guard in, got some line on it, ready to test this bad boy. All right, in she goes. It always takes a little bit of time to get those rabbit strips soaked. So you can kind of move it around, see all those bubbles coming off. Once it's soaked through, if you're fishing these on a regular basis throughout the day, you don't have to do that, but it's good to get them loosened up. There, you can see the hair's kind of loosening up there a bit. Classic football, dragging it on the bottom. Got that flare going. Of course, the claws will float because they're rabbit. Oh yeah, look at that. Gwen made me that stone, wrote on it years ago. It's probably, I don't know, 8 years ago. Fishing is my style. Love Gwen. I kept it and figured it was a good place to put it in the old test tank. But boy, she looks good. When it splays out like that, you can see our core, that UV polar chenille. Of course, all the flake in the silicone, and the action is always awesome on fire or on rabbit. It just always looks good. And again, look at that head. Oh my lands. Goodness gracious, it just looks good. Barlow's knocked it out of the park with those Nova Stone paints. Okay. Well, there she is, boys. I'm thinking that one's going to catch. Well, that was a successful test tank. Got my little creation here hanging up to dry. Anytime you guys use rabbit fur as claws, make sure that after you're done fishing for the day, you hang it up to air dry, because these claws and that leather just soak up the water and it will rust out your hooks. So give those claws a good squeegee, get as much of that water out of them as you can, hang them up to dry. Once it's dry, then just kind of rub that hair between your fingers, blow on it a little bit, and poof, you are right back in business. Looks just like new. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Had fun kind of going old school, going back to the vise, tying up a jig, a hair jig at that. It's springtime. It's a great time to do Fire Craw. Hope you guys enjoyed the build. I enjoyed doing it for you. Thanks for watching. And until the next time, I'll see you guys in the shop.